Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation in this interesting conference. Here? Okay. In a conference delivered at Monaco in 1953, the question concerning technology, Heidegger argued that the essence of technology is not all technical. Technology is means and activity of man, thus not exhaust itself in its use. In 1957 lecture on architecture and technology in Chicago, Ms. van der Rohe stated that technology is something that possesses sense, an effective form, something self-sufficience. The present moments compels us to reflect on these issues, critically observing what surrounds us. There is no doubt that with the transition from mechanics to electronics and the development of digital tools, technology has become pervasive. Today, technology has become invisible, something autonomous from the physical construction, almost overwhelming it. And the uncritical use of new technologies carries the risk of homogenization, producing projects devoid of identity and connection to the context. This use of technology creates projects that could exist anywhere, erasing the historical memory and culture of the places. And we believe that the challenge for architecture should be to work with the site and the form and with minimal intervention, designing and constructing architectures that are not merely technical exercises, but the expression of timeless spirit of places, buildings that consider the environment in which they are situated and the living communities. Faced with ever-changing technology, Heidegger's thought helped us, drawing on what the poet Hölderlin wrote, to highlight an opportunity. According to the German philosopher, the technology offers the chance to better understand the mechanism to which we risk become subject, enable us to return to the true essence. We reflect in this light, recognizing that architectural experimentation is also innovation in the pursuit of beauty, grounding in the meaning of the word techne, which represent the art of knowing how to do and rediscovering the Greek term poiesis, the practical act of making. Both in their origin contain a poetic dimension associated with the invention of forms and the idea of architecture. These premises are necessary and define the relationship that an architectural project must establish with the city, and thus with the structure of its own architecture and the urban project. Aldo Rossi, in the Architecture of the City, highlighted that architecture recognizes in its parts unique elements and repeat elements as a part of urban design, and the result of a layers of coexistence of fragments and permanence at different scales, retains an autonomous value, not only from its function, but also from its original technical elements. And Rossi told us that an architectural project must meet social demands related to the idea of space, which feed with the imagination and collective memory. And central to architectural project are the rules, techniques, geometries, and rhetorical and figurative elements as a set of fundamental rules for experiences architecture. Therefore, finding beauty in architectures that aligns with expectation is not easy if one seeks architecture to translate into construction and become a meaningful part of a city. The search for architecture finds a referential system and therefore meaning in the establishment of rules external to the structure and internal to it, with the structure itself. For example, in the spatial combination of elements, parts of the construction, and the addition of material components. A fundamental element of the architectural project is the site, understood as a typological figure in which the project allows its construction and upon which prefigurative materials. The transformation of a space into a place is possible if certain measures are employed, that is, design the scale relationship that the typological figure, the site, established between elements of the landscape, the relationship between its architecture and immediate surroundings, between physical, morphological, orographic, and urban elements that constitute the materials of the ground project. This attention shifts the positioning of points, as well as the dimension of the void and the presence of permanent objects, the nature of the spatial continuity or separation, and their shape, size, and geometry. The operational capability of formal and functional architectural ties is another fundamental thing. Through a repertoire of emblematic architecture and instrumental use of collage technique. Delving into the rules that compose and construct, we can question what the existing Z-element models is an innovate and with project actions. Architecture always works through choices and operation of subtraction and addition. Therefore, the project must understand, compose, and deeply experience with the Z-element models or reference that configure the space and determine a new dimension of meaning for the site. And this is clear that if the configuration of this project is conditioned by the form of the site and the material and immaterial relationship in place, the transformation operated by the project can also be attributed to non-spatial rules, which are also prefigurative, such as the transfer of economic values and land. The ability to design with these complex rules will result in the image and overall definition of a place space within the city. The operational capability of formal and functional architectural times constitute a personal archive from which to select the most coherent types to configure solution following an intention to imagine the construction of the architecture. We think, above all, the relationship between form, space, and structure. Designing a quality building today has become synonymous of a process control, must consider a technological decision relating to energy saving, modularity through prefabrication, disassembly and disposal, the use of non-pollution, renewable and natural raw materials, and the passivity of the architectural envelope. This approach to functionality often shows that the aesthetic and even ethical value of architecture is not guaranteed. We must not abandon the compositional path, which involves controlling three-dimensional outcomes instead of delegating them to non-spatial operators, such as regulation and specialized skills. The power sacral of architecture is always the result of compositional design approach, addressing the categories and methods of constructing invisible materials, the perception of space, light, volume, atmosphere, the relationship between external and internal space, the threshold, the geometry as a lexicon. In other words, all compositional operation as a referential system of meaning. At this point, it is useful to revisit both the method and some project categories that are indissolubly linked to the composition. Among them, we consider compositional operations that use the category of separation. In Towards a New Architecture, Le Corbusier proposed a paradigm shift. He conceived the architectural design as a synthesis between form and technique, distinguish architectural components, such as a load-bearing element, where the structure is separating from the wall, and supported elements, like a free plane, allowing public access to the natural surface, the distinction between structure and facade, and the assembling of technical rooms and networks. This ontological choice also involves the truth and the purity of construction in the relationship between form, light, structure, facade, and the technical rooms and networks. This was made possible by reinforced concrete. The innovative aspect of this approach is the relational value implied by the additive positional choice. It clarified the spatial relationship and the measurement of the void established between the elements. The same applies to Mies van der Rohe, where the use of steel and glass technology creates completely open and free forms. Positioning the structure inside the facade introduces a new syntax from which invention like the ribbon window on double-A loggia arise, and the logic of separating elements and their additive recomposition define a new field in the discipline of the project, the nominal value of the distance between elements. These rules have not too widespread use. In the collective imagination, the typological identity coincides with the commonplace, with constructive elements based on rhetorical figure borrowed from the ancient city. Thus, common construction has provided our city with the solution based on infilling the load-bearing structure with walls. The disappearance of structure as an architectural, plastic, and spatial element has become a technical modus operandi of design, which is structural conception delegated to specialist design and only later integrated into architectural phase. But we must remember that there is a fundamental relationship between architectural and structural conception for the architectural innovation in form. We must also recognize that we are witnesses with the disappearance of architectural space increasingly occupied by technical systems. In Franco Albini and Franca Elga La Rinascente Department Store in Rome, for example, the technical systems are integrated on the same surface, shaping the horizontal floor markers. In the urban machine of Centre Pompidou by Piano and Rogers in Paris, the technical systems are expelled to the exterior facade, making the interior space open and flexible while creating a sort of technological narrative interface. In Le Corbusier, l'unité d'habitation, we must acknowledge the question of form about the technical characteristic of construction, where the voice takes on the form of a solid pipe in the special volume of each individual apartment, fitting and combining with the void of the structural frameworks of beams and columns. The separation of elements and the process ideation respond to the paradigm of assembly, as opposed to the traditional construction that interpenetrate different materials. And the imagination of a component-based architecture, on the other hand, forces us to consider all the functional categories of the construction process, corresponding to the off-site preparation, rapid assemblies, and the immediate availability of new assets. The collection elements by Colas appears as a classification of evolving patterns, making abstract elements, walls, columns, frames, stairs, etc., and rhetorical elements available in design. It highlights the vast range of materials to share compositional operation, where the result do not fit a single language, but belong to the poetic of space. Among the cognitive models in architectural representation, it is legitimate to select the outcomes resulting from associative combination that currently respond to the project requirements, as well as the constructive and typological reason from the elements themselves. But everything must start from the city. Designing through composition means adhering in all aspects in construction new urban spaces that fulfill the demands of beauty. This cannot be relegated to images or gestures for their own sake, but must include, as a compositional operation, an ethic of process, and an economy of gesture, an outlook for the future of the place we live in, which is not a technical issue, but ultimately a matter of essence, and in the end, of language. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Battaino, for very interesting lecture.